And we're live. Yo, what's up, everybody? This is the In Your Face
In your face.
show. And I'm here with my main man, the good man, my big brother, and one of my big brothers in the industry, Hollywood knowledge up in this motherfucker. My big bro, Andre Owens.
What's
Introduce
up?
yourself, brother.
What's up? I'm Andre Owens. I'm a former cinematographer turned screenwriter and comic book maker. Very happy to be on the show In Your Face.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, okay.
How you doing,
Take it
man?
away.
How you
I'm
doing?
chilling, man. Chilling
Good,
like a
good.
villain.
That's what you should be
Just
doing,
chilling.
man. This is your show. This is the way you do it. You know, you rock it the way you want to rock it.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I'm feeling kind of nippy. You know what I'm saying? Feeling kind of crispy.
Yeah, yes, I do. Yes, I do. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
No, I'm excited to be here on the In Your Face show. I've been watching the show for weeks. This is what episode 19, which is pretty impressive if
yeah.
you ask me. Things are doing good for you, man.
Hey man, I just look, bro. I just been working to just make it even better. You know what I'm saying? Take it to the next level.
Yeah, yeah. That's all you can
Just
do,
giving
man.
it.
You just got to keep pushing forward. That's the way the world works.
Hell yeah. You know what I mean?
And look, man, you're in the, you're a young man. You're in the cutting edge of this damn, all this, this technology, doing the YouTube show, and I mean, that's the way to do it, man. Get this stuff out there. Those of us that, in the black comic community are, happy to have people like you out there because you're getting the word out about our books. That otherwise we couldn't get it out there. So I'm thrilled to be on your show.
Well, thank you, man. I actually just been, man, it's a pleasure because it's an honor, to be honest with you, to do this work for people. I don't mind doing it. It brightens my heart because I want to
Right.
make sure that everybody gets out, and I want to make sure that everybody is served the right way and loved the right way. And it's all about spreading love. That's the main goal, and is bringing the people together to make people feel good and to give them a hope that things will be better and will get better, and things should just kick it off. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
That's
yeah.
just how
Well,
I like it.
Well, you know what it's like? It's like it's like you go to, I'm at these conventions, you go to the comic book conventions, like a black comic convention, even white comic book conventions, but you go to a black convention and you get like these grannies and, aunties and stuff with their kids and grandkids and, nieces and nephews. And they show up and they say, we had no idea that this was out here. That all they know about is like Black Panther or the Falcon. They didn't know that there's, literally hundreds of black indie comics being made out there. So, a show like yours is definitely needed to get that word out to people.
Well, see, the show is is because it's so gritty and so nippy and very in your face with the language and the diagram and the dialogue. Like I'm giving it to everybody. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Everybody can watch the show. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And grasp that way of love. You know what I'm saying? That love, and that's what I want to bring. I want to
No, it's good.
bring. Go ahead, go ahead. Go ahead.
It's good, man. No, it's really good. It's like, no one, I do these books. I've been doing this for shit, man. Gosh, 20, 24 years. I think it was 1998 when I wrote my first comic book script. So I've been in this game a long time.
Yeah.
So it really makes a difference when we have the outlets to get this shit out here. Excuse my language, to get this stuff out here to people, that don't know about us, and like shows like yours are so important. I mean, like, all the books I do, I mean, I started doing, like I said, 1998, I started writing my book Force Galaxia, which is the first book I did. And that was because I'd been working as like a cinematographer. Like I said earlier, I was a cinematographer most of my career after college. Back in the 90s, I shot music videos for like Willie D from the Ghetto Boys, all kind of local Washington, D.C. and Baltimore area bands. I worked on a TV show called Rock Live, where I must have shot 150 different local bands around the Baltimore, Washington area in the 90s. So I was when I moved to LA in 98, I was very ready to do something different, to do something creative. And that's why I decided to start doing comics, because it was something I always
Mhm.
read. I always read comics, you know what I mean? And it was just
Mhm.
like, well, how can I get, how do I get my ideas out there without spending $1 million as a filmmaker? you know. And I know a lot of people feel that
Right.
same way, and I know a lot of comic book purists hate to hear that you know, people move from screenwriting into comics because they feel like it's easier, and it's not easier by any means to make it, but it's you can, you know, and artists hate when I say this bullshit, but you can say, like, you know, panel 1, 1,000 ships, you know, panel 2, you know, 1,000 planets, and someone has to draw that, you know what I mean? You put that
Right.
in a movie, and that's going to be expensive as hell. So, you know, that's the difference making. So no, that's why I was, you know, that's why I'm always happy to hear about, you know, have shows like yours and to come on shows like yours to spread the word of, you know, about Black indie comics, because we are out there and we're strong.
Right. And then see, and this is the thing too, man. You know, even though I have a lot of black creators on the show, you know, I love that it's more multicultural. I love that it's getting out to everybody, because
Right.
if you get it out to everybody, then everybody get a piece of that pie and everybody knows about you. You know what I'm saying? And
Well, yeah,
that's why. Go
well,
ahead.
I mean, that's the truth, man. You know, you can, if you can, you know, it's like public speaking. It's like if you're out there and you're public speaking, if you connect to one person in the audience, you connect to everybody. So it's the same thing with you know, creative stuff. If you can connect to that one audience, you connect to everybody. You know, because when people see that you're talking to one person or something, they pay more attention to it. You know what I'm talking about? So
Mm-hmm.
if they
Mm-hmm.
if they see that you're connected to an audience of, you know, of Batman fans, for instance. If you got some book that could get your Batman fans, then you connect to like everybody else in that Batman universe. You know, so it's definitely what you were talking about. You know, making it going from the small to the wider, going from the local to the global.
And you know, see too. Also, what I'm doing with this show is to broaden out to help the people broaden out their scope,
Yeah,
open their
yeah,
mind to better things
yeah,
and
yeah.
awesomer paths, because it's a lot of ways we can get our books out. And there's a lot of
Right.
ways, a lot of markets where you can touch down on to get our shit out and into the stores and into places. Not just the big people could do it. We can do it
Right.
as well. We just have
Oh
to have
yeah.
the right resources, you know.
Well, I mean, that's
And
always the problem is, you know, for us small guys is having the finances, you know, the money to be
mhm.
able to produce these things and do these things. It's like, I mean, I'm sad to announce here on this show, but we have, you know, BIC Distro, which is Black Indie Comics Distribution, and we've been running strong, but we're just not making enough money to keep it going. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to go on a hiatus starting in May. We'll be back, but we just have to slow down because, you know, we don't, like you were saying earlier. Once again, it's the resources, you know. Um,
Mhm.
and for some, you know, for some, what people understand, you know, entertainment's a huge thing in the world, but comic books are a small, tiny niche of the entertainment business. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
and then indie comics are smaller than that, you know. And if you get like, then there's a Black indie comics, it's even smaller than that. So, you know, if you're in that indie comics world, that that is where, you know, that's where you want to operate. I think, like you were saying earlier about everybody. You know, I like, for instance, for me, I, you know, like I said, I do Black indie comics. I'm Black, obviously, so I do, you know, books that have Black leads and Black characters and Black themes, but they're not necessarily in your face about it. Speaking of in your face, you know, it's they're more subtle. It's like my scripts for Hollywood. You know, there's a lot of social issues, but it's baked into the script. You know what I mean? It's not over your,
Mhm.
it's not hitting you over the head. It's not telling you this is, you know, telling you how to behave or this is the right way to do this or whatever. It's just it's just part of the world. And that's the, you know, that's the I think that's the one way I'm trying to get. I'm rambling now, but that's the one reason I'm trying to get, you know, my books out the same way. And that's what we were doing with BIC Distro. You know, trying to get all those stories out there.
And that's the best way you could do. You know what I'm saying? And hey, if you find another path, go that way. You know what
Right?
I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
Because there's no there's many ways to success,
Right.
and some paths are not good to take. Some paths are good to take.
Right. Well,
But
you know,
yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, you know, not to dominate, but it's like, you know, what I've learned in my life about success is, and I'm sure you could translate this to any group or whatever. But I know for me, what I've learned about the entertainment business and comics and screenwriting and filmmaking in its general is this. It's like there's a couple things you have to do. You have to have perseverance, right? You can't give up. You know what I mean? You just can't give up. So if you're not successful in 2 years, you got to keep holding on. Maybe 5 years will be successful, maybe 10 years, maybe 20 years. But if you give up, and what your dreams are, and to be able to do something, you're never going to be able to make them because you've given up. So perseverance is number one. The number two thing is something that you're doing really well right now is relationships, like relationship building. You can't burn bridges. You can't be, it used to be back in the old days, you could be an asshole and get away with it. People like, well, he's talented, but he's a jackass. But but he's talented, so we use it. But with this modern era and the way younger folks are, you can't do that anymore. You got to build relationships and be good. And then if you have those two things, you have perseverance, stick with it, and you build a lot of relationships. You got to have luck, which is opportunity. You know what I mean? So, and when that comes along, you got to be ready to hit that ball. When you get that opportunity and that luck in this business, you have to go with it. And then if you have all those things, which are all hard to line up anyway, you got to have talent to back it up.
Right.
So yeah, man. So it's a long process. I think that people don't. A lot of cats get into stuff short term. I see stuff online. And, dudes would be like working for like a year, 18, 20 months or 24 months, and they give up because they're like, I'm not selling 10,000 books a month. And it's like, that isn't the way this business works.
Right. And that's, to be honest, that's why it's all about going head on and pushing forward. And to me, let's get into some topics, topics of what to get the show started.
Right. All right.
So, topic number one.
Yeah.
Tell other people about your journey into Hollywood.
Okay. So like a lot of people, when I was young, I wrote a lot of, wrote my own comics and stuff as a kid. And, then I went to high school and I thought I was going to be a great track athlete until I got to college and met real athletes. You know how that is. So when I went to university, I started studying film. So, just filmmaking in general. And I just happened to be kind of good at camera operating. So I ended up being a cinematographer for most of the people in school. And then after school, I just continued my career doing that. Like I said earlier, I shot a lot of music videos and commercials, political ads. And then I moved to LA in the late 90s from Baltimore. And I was, shooting similar stuff out here. Even gotten as far as shooting porn with a friend of mine, Carlos Batts, rest in peace. He was a great artist. If you guys look him up, Carlos Batts, I think you'd be impressed with his artwork. But so I got, I shot just about everything. And the thing is, when you're a cameraman, it's cool and all. You get to do a lot of stuff. You get to see a lot of stuff. I mean, I worked for a media training company where I was the lead camera operator. We trained, we went around the country and trained executives how to answer questions from reporters. So, I had an extensive background as a camera operator. But like I said, you're not doing what you want to do. You're only doing what other people show you to do. So I was like, well, man, I'm frustrated. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I didn't really think of myself as a great writer because I never really, I wasn't a literature major or anything like that. I was a history major with a film background. So it's like one of those things where you go, well, what do I love? I love comics, always loved comics. So let me start figuring out how to do that. So the internet was young in the late 90s, you know what I mean? And so I started doing research and I figured out, how you make a comic, how to produce it. And I remember there was a site called digitalwebbing.com where there was one of those early sites where there was a lot of artists on. So I found an artist and started my first book, Force Galaxia. And I think it didn't come out to 2006, but I started working on it around 2000. And, since I'm not an artist, you have to pay the artist to do all the artwork, like, as you know. So it took a while to produce my first book. So that came out around 2005, which is Force Galaxia. You can find it at a Big Distro or HeroUnlimited.com. So that was my first book. Subsequently, while I was making that book and coming out, I re-upped with a friend who, speaking this is what I'm talking about earlier about perseverance and relationships. So I re-upped with my friend Jeff Howard, who was a successful screenwriter. And, we were buddies. He wrote the script of a movie I made back in the early 90s called Permanent Damage. I was a cinematographer and he was the writer. But we had stayed friends on and off. And so we got reattached in the mid 2000s, started hanging out and everything. And he was getting successful. He ended up hooking up with a guy named Mike Flanagan, who you might know that does a lot of horror films and, Oculus, Gerald's Game, The Haunting of Hill House, The New Midnight Mass. Flanagan does a lot. And Jeff is his co-writer and executive producer on a bunch of his stuff. So, Jeff always knew I was writing these comics, and he was really supportive of it at all. But I had this idea for a script called Reparations, and like a heist film. And a few years ago, maybe 2017 or so, Jeff came to me and said, you got this idea, let's run with it. So through his connections, once again, relationships and connections, we got in at Sony to pitch it at Screen Gems. And and amazingly, it's an experience that most people do not have. This is not a regular experience, but we pitched it at Screen Gems, and they bought it right then. They did not option it, but they actually bought the ideas, bought the script. So we developed the script with Screen Gems and ended up, selling the script to Screen Gems. And that's actually how I got in as a screenwriter into Hollywood, and subsequently been, developing a bunch of other stuff. Got a lot of stuff percolating right now. Hopefully, something will pop over the top soon. But, it's taken me a long time to make this journey. You know what I mean? And that's why I talk about perseverance. Why, if I would have given up, 15 years ago when I was just working at the game show network as a regular dude, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah. Shit.
So,
so what is it? What are the struggles that I hear in the industry? Have you had your fair share of struggles?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you. Some of the most frustrating things is when you're developing stuff is if something else comes along before you can continue developing it. It gets just thrown to the back burner. So like before the pandemic, I had they were calling all these these women, calling them Karens. These women running around, acting crazy. So I had an idea for a script called Karen. And I started developing and started writing it. And about two-thirds of the way through writing it, it came out that there was a movie coming out called Karen. And then that took all the juice away from my script, even though it was a completely different kind of script. So, you get those kind of small little hiccups like that. But the larger thing is, once again, it takes a while to develop something. So back in July of 2020, Jeff and I were approached by someone else about writing a TV show. And Rob Stevenson's the guy's name. He's a music executive, and he had an idea for a show. So we started developing the show with him, and we brought it in with his connections to Universal Music Group, and got the Lionsgate TV, and we're developing it. But it's been in development since summer of 2020. So we finally were just pitching to the streamers this month. So literally it took 2 years. So that's, part of the process is it takes time. You know what I mean? It takes time to get things developed. It's like Sebastian Jones has sold his University, Asunder University, HBO Max. And I hear people already complaining, where is it or why isn't it developed? It's like, it takes a lot of time to develop something from the page to the screen. So that's some of the bigger hustles, and then you get all the general microaggressions of people expecting you to be in a certain box, to act a certain way, calling you on things. There's a lot of it's like every industry. There's a lot of bad shit, but it's on the whole, things work out better if you have the talent to back up your bravado.
Right. True that. So how many years have you been doing Hollywood, and how many years you've been doing comics?
Okay. Well, if you want to count Hollywood as being just working in the film industry at all, I've been doing, quote unquote Hollywood, even when I was in Baltimore, since I got out of college in 1989. I'm a college dropout. So I dropped out of college in 1989. After 5 years, which is ridiculous, but that's another story. But I've been working, doing music videos and stuff like that since then. I shot low budget features and stuff like that in Baltimore, and that was one of the reasons to come to LA originally, was to work in the industry, which I did. But like I said, it wasn't a long. So I've been working like in the film industry in one capacity or other, 35 years, since I was a kid, since I was, 21 years old. So and that's in that capacity. Now, one of the things I'll get to, some of my friends are still working in production, which is great, but, and hopefully most of them are above the line now, because when you're so above the line is people like writers and directors and producers, and below the line are people like, the artisans that actually make the product, like, DPs and cameramen and set dressers and etc. So when you're below the line, you're doing a lot of physical. You can be doing a lot of physical work, especially if you're like a cameraman like I was. You're lugging around equipment, especially low budget camera films where you don't have a big crew, so you're doing it all on your own. And then that stuff will wear you out. So that's why I end up trying to convert from being a cameraman into writing, because writing is infinitely less taxing on your body. But man, as a cameraman, I've done everything. I worked for the government for a while in the first, well, not for a whole year in the first Gulf War back in 1991 as a weapons photographer and videographer. So man, when you're a cameraman in this industry, you do everything, everything and anything that you can get away with. But now, as far as comics, if you want to say when did you write your first comic, it was when I was 10 years old, man. I was like aping the Avengers, and I made a comic called the Offenders, AFENDRS, which was the Avengers and the Defenders together. You know what I mean? So I had these adventures,
Right.
and I created a character called he was a Superman pastiche called Francisco the Super Green, and actually he's one of the characters in I have a book coming that's it's forthcoming called Omegan Chronicles, which has been like over 20 year in the making graphic novel, and it's going to be 230 pages long. It features Francisco, the same character I made when I was a kid, on an adventure, like a fantasy adventure on a distant planet. So obviously I've been working on that stuff since I was young till today. So gosh, 45 years I've been working in comics, but as someone making money in comics, working since about 2006 is when I started publishing my own book, and started making a little bit of money coming in. And I've wrote stuff, I've written stuff for you, I've written comics for other people. Still writing a bunch of screenplays, of course. And like I said, we've got this TV show that we're developing, and hopefully that'll come soon. We've got a couple other projects working. I've got a documentary called well, right now it's tentatively called Hero Talk. There was a website back in the early 2000s called blacksuperhero.com, and it was before social media, and it had a message board called a Hero Talk, and a bunch of us indie comic creators and even pros. Dwayne McDuffie was on the site. I think Reggie Hudlin had been on the site, but we were it was a community of like-minded people who liked comics, and out of that, a lot of people have become very very successful. Brandon Easton is someone that came out of blacksuperhero.com. So a couple years ago, someone had posted on Facebook. It was like, who's going to make the documentary about blacksuperhero.com? So I looked around. I was like, well, shit, I will, right? So of course the pandemic hit, and it kind of put a crank on this. But we, you can go to YouTube right now, and if you look up Hero Talk, the documentary, you can see the trailer. And maybe Daniel will post it after this. You can see the trailer for this documentary I want to make about this website, this website that incubated a lot of indie talent. But the thing is, so I've taken it around town trying to get funding, and approaching people, whatever. And a lot of people want us to expand it to Black indie comics in general, not just this website, or Black superheroes in general, not just indie comics. So I'm in developing that right now too, and trying to get that up and running. So if any producers are out there that are interested, hit me up.
Right. He's a great writer. Great writer. Yes, he is.
Thanks,
He
man.
actually, Andre actually did the first issue of Collision of the Colossus, the actual writing
Yeah,
of it.
yeah. It was
It
fun.
was yes it was. Actually, I'm still trying to get that out soon. Trying to get that shit out. But I want you to do I'm trying to get you to do the part two of book two of Jarhead. Oh
All
my
right,
god,
man.
gotta have you,
I know.
man.
Yeah, you just let me know. We'll talk about it. I have nothing but time right now. So I I can devote some time to it.
Yeah. So when it comes to how many years have you been doing the Milky Way?
So the Milky Way Defense Marines. So okay, so the Milky Way Defense Marines is a book. Well, let me back up. So let me just tell you about all the books I do, and I'll get the Milky Way Defense Marines. So I go do a book called Force Galaxia, which is a sci-fi superhero anthology that has 3 stories in each issue, all interrelated. And that's where I first serialized this. The book I was talking about, Omegan Chronicles, the graphic novel. So the first 2 chapters are in the first 2 books of Force Galaxia. There's 3 issues of that. So there's Force Galaxia 1, 2, and 3. And then I did a book called The Stone Dage about I worked at a bong store at Melrose in the late 90s. And this book's all about like my first couple of days there and all the crazy characters I met and all the crazy adventures that happened. So I did that. And then I did a book called The Bovine League, which is my favorite book to write because it's about genetically altered superpowered cows from Switzerland. So I've got issue number 0 and number 1 about that. And then I wrote what you mentioned, the Milky Way Defense Marines, which is I always loved the character Sergeant Rock. You know, if you guys remember him, and you know with his what were they called, Easy Company. You know, so it was this World War II comic back in the day. So I always loved that, and I was like, man, I want to do my own version of that. So that's how I came up with Milky Way Defense Marines, because all my books are interconnected, supposedly in the same universe, and most of them are, you know, I use the trope instead of once upon a time, I say sometime from now, and then it explains, you know, it's just sometime in the future, so I'm not, you know, tied to a certain date. So most of my books take place there. I mean, the Stone Dage is obviously autobiographical, so it takes place in the, you know, early 2000s. But you know, most of them came there. So Milky Way Defense Marines came out of my love of Sergeant Rock, and I was like, you know, what story do I want to tell that way? So, you know, I came up with an idea, and you know, it's just this brief story about the Milky Way Defense Marines. You know, like all my friends that have been in the service talk about, you know, they're sent on missions where they really don't understand what they're doing, but they've got an assignment to say capture that hill and hold it, so they do it anyway. You know, so that's basically what I wanted to explore with that. So yeah, I do. You know, so I do a whole bunch of different books. I've got a book, like I said, mentioned earlier, about the thing called the Offenders, which is was the Avengers and the Offenders. Well, I decided to turn that into, with my writing partner David Lyle Johnson, I decided to turn that into a book called Hollywood Offenders, AFNDRES, about Hollywood Boulevard and the denizens of Hollywood Boulevard and the Game of Thrones type situation. So it's this weird fantasy meets reality, you know, comic. So yeah, so it's, you know, so that's one of the reasons, you know, West, all of the books I'm doing, and what you asked about specifically about Milky Way Defense Marines.
Right, right. And you know, that is part of, I think the Milky Way was one of your best books.
Thanks, man.
I
Yeah,
actually loved it.
it's
You
got, well,
know,
I got a great artist working on it, Ruli Akbar. So shout out to Ruli, he's the man. You know, he can really crank out those really great pages.
yeah, 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 yeah. You know, I actually was watching it, and it reminded me of the Space Troopers,
Oh,
whatever you
cool.
call it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I know
yeah.
what you're
And I
talking
was
about.
like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool,
yeah,
man. Thanks, appreciate that. Appreciate
yeah.
that.
You know, I actually got
Yeah.
a one of the digital files.
Oh,
You know,
cool.
that
All right, on. Good.
first
Yeah,
came out.
yeah,
You
yeah,
remember
yeah,
when you showed it to me?
yeah. I remember. Yeah.
So
No, I mean, I think, you know, I mean, I really appreciate you. You know, uh, it's an honor to me when people read what I write and really like it, and then someone like you reads it, likes what I write, and then you know, subsequently hires me to do something. You know, that's a real big
hmm
compliment. I really appreciate that.
yeah, because to be honest with you, I love the way you write because of the way it's structured and the way it's done. It's to my liking.
Well,
You know, it's
well, you
gritty.
know what it is,
You
man. I
know.
mean, you know, it's like, not to get too professorial here, but you know, when you're writing, there's certain things you have to think about. You know what I mean? Like, you
hmm
know, like you want to begin with the ending in mind, if you know what I mean. So
hmm
when you're starting to write something, you want to know where you want to go. Now, you may not get to that same place, because when you're writing, you know, things have a way of going where they want to go. You know what I mean? When you're in the midst of writing, characters behave in different ways than you may have intended them to, because of the situation you put them in. And, you know, because of their personalities, they have to behave a certain way. You know, they're forced to. They can't do the other thing. So you want to begin, you know, with the end in mind. You know, when you're writing those kind of things,
Right.
and it's like uh, it's like when you're writing, you know, the way I like to think about it is you have to think that you have story and plot. You know what I mean? So
hmm
so say like say like Hamlet. Okay, you know, the Shakespeare play Hamlet. The story is about a guy who can't make up his mind. You know, this guy just can't make up his mind. He's wishy-washy, can't make up his mind. That's the story. But the plot is about the same guy thinks his uncle killed his father. You know what I mean? So what you want to
hmm
do, and when you're writing like that, what you want to do is have the plot service the story. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you follow it through. Now a lot of and that's what a lot of problems arise sometimes, is people either have a really good plot, but they don't know what the story's about, optimally what the story's about. So it just seems like you're reading something, it's just plot heavy. You're like, well, where's this heading to? You know what I mean? Um, you need to establish the story early, you know, in those kind of situations. I mean, I could go on for hours about just, you know, writing and things about, you know, techniques and you know, how to do those kind of things. I mean, it's like you never want to throw away an idea. You know what I mean? No matter, how small it is. You want to have a notebook somewhere. Like I keep two or three notebooks that I'd write every idea I have down in, and then it comes back to you, and you can use it in any situation. It's just basic ideas like that. Another
Well,
good right. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
not. Oh, well, I just wanted to throw something in there. Well, when I'm writing, like writing my synopsis, I
Right.
think about what I want to say. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? I think about
Right.
what
Right.
what is interesting to the public, and
Right.
what kind of relates to the people that's reading it.
Right. Well, you know
You
what you mean.
know,
You got to think that way because you don't a lot of writers and you see and you can see it. A lot of writers want to be smarter than their audience. You know what I mean? Want to be more
right,
clever and smarter than their audience, and it's not necessary. It's not necessary to reinvent the wheel. It's not necessary to come up with a plot or a story so convoluted that you think like, oh well, this is so clever. I'm so smart because I've got this really weird script and da 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 da. The real deal is it's you do something simple like there's only so many stories you can tell, and the real deal is you need to tell a story in a new, interesting way, or with new characters or people that have never been in that situation before. That's the thing. I mean, yeah. Sorry, I'm getting so talkative about this, but it's like
no, go ahead, do your thing.
okay, it's like the boy meets girl analogy, right? So you got these scripts. It's very
Hmm.
simple. So you got like boy meets girl, right? Boy loses girl, boy gets girl. That's the entire film,
Right,
right? And you see that, but you can tell that like in any genre. That could be a western, that could be a comedy, that could be a romantic Christmas movie, that could be sci-fi, because that's what the main story is about. Now all the other stuff that goes on top is your plot, But if you don't have to tell a story that no one's seen before is my point. If you tell a story that's really well done, it doesn't matter. It's like like someone's like Quentin Tarantino with Pulp Fiction. Everyone thought it was so unique, but it was a very basic story. It was just told in an interesting way.
right, and
Yeah.
and I like, okay, and this is the one thing I loved about how the Wolverine origins, how that whole series came about. I like how it was done. The whole
Right,
series of
right,
Wolverine, all the movies of Wolverine. How
right.
basically his life was like the life when he was in, was it Japan or China?
I
When he
think it's
was in
Japan.
Japan, yeah, when he was in Japan, right? And that part where you didn't get to see a lot of all the characters at once. Like for example, I like to do my synopsis like a
Mm-hmm.
movie,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
the beginning and like
Mm-hmm.
I tell the ending of the story in the beginning. You get what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right. Yeah.
Like for example, okay, from Jarhead, how Jarhead is for the first book of Jarhead, right?
Right.
That is getting you, introducing you to Jarhead, right? But that is like basically the ending of his
Right.
of his time in the military. It don't go deep into what I want to tell you. You get
Right.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
just introduce you to the character, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why it was wrote so dull was to just introduce you to it. It wasn't dull, but it was written softly.
Right.
But
Well,
book
that. Well,
two,
I mean, when I read Jarhead book one, it's like a setup, for
mm-hmm,
something that's going to take place. There's not like a lot of action in it or things that just blow your mind in, but you can tell that it's setting up a bigger world. You know.
right, and that's why when I wrote the synopsis, I was giving you bits and pieces of what's going to happen. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And um, from what I wanted to do, what I want to do, right? Book two and Collision of the Colossus is a connection to book two. You get what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just an action scene book. It's
Yeah.
not,
No.
you know what I'm saying?
Man,
It's just
Collision of the
it's a
Colossus was
one,
fun to write. It was fun. Because it was you wanted to go
yeah,
splash
because
pages. It was fun.
because that was just nothing but action. That was an action book in itself. You know what I'm saying? And it pulled out some of your creative things that you wanted to create. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean that's
And
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, well, I mean, that's when you're getting into like structure and the way way stories are told, and I think that you even if you don't know it, you instinctively are writing that way. You know, not the there's no correct way, so I was gonna say the correct way, but you're writing a well trained way of telling a tale. You know,
Well, yeah, because with every story that I put out,
right,
every series that I put out, Collision of the Colossus will be a series in itself, but it will follow. It will be a connection to every series that I put out of different characters. You know what
right,
I'm saying? Because
yeah,
it's an
yeah,
action scene book. You know what I'm saying? And it opens the door to other characters that you will not see, that you may see in book two, but you won't get not book two, but you won't. Okay, that's all the scene books that I'm doing for
right,
every series that I come out with. Is going to have different characters in it that you may not see in the books that the big books.
yeah, I know
You're
what you
going to
mean,
see in a small book. You're going to
right,
see more in the small books because it's going to be an action scene.
right.
You know what I'm saying?
No,
So
look, man, I mean that's
that's what.
I like that idea because you're talking about telling this whole tale in different way, in a different way, so that you know, you open yourself up to be able to tell like these one-off tales, like the story of Collision of the Colossus within this. Like I said, once again, you're doing it within the larger framework of your Jarhead world, you know.
Right, because the collision of the Colossus is a collision of two beings, two people, beings, animals, you know what I'm saying? And all
Mm-hmm.
my characters, they're all coming,
Right,
say like for example, smoke fighting against um smoke fighting against shit, ambush fighting against Jarhead, or Jarhead fighting against Smash X, and
right, right,
that
yeah,
all of that is grounded and built, you know what I'm saying,
yeah, yeah,
within the grounds of action, the way I see it. And that is what I call the collision of the Colossus. You know what
right,
I'm
yeah,
saying? And what a lot of people is going to get once I bring book one out is a glimpse into book two. You
right,
get what I'm saying? A
yeah,
little glimpse of what you're going to get when it comes to action. The action is groundbreaking, earth shattering, head busting, ass
right,
kicking, you name it, because that is what I want to. It's gritty and
right, right.
it's bloody and it's gore and it's nasty, and that is what. Hold on.
Yo, what's up?
But yeah, it's very gritty and very nasty. You know what I'm saying? And
Right,
that is what I'm bringing to the table. And that's why when I seen your art style, your writing style, it brought me to what I was doing. And
cool. Well,
I've
yeah,
learned, and yeah,
but
go ahead.
yeah, no, I was gonna say, yeah. I mean, I liked working with you is because you had characters in your head that you were able to express to me what what their personalities were, what their motivations are, and then you let me just write. You weren't someone that was micromanaging, saying, "Oh no, I need him. His left hand needs to be used here because he's left-handed, and when he uses, you let me just create what I wanted to create. And it was good to write in that world. I mean, when you write for some people, they're so micromanaging everything you're doing. So writing with you is a pleasure.
When see when I have when writers are writing for me, like writing the scripts for me, I want to give them a story of what, put it in their head, basically. Put it like, it's like when a script writer is writing the scripts for me, I want them to come into my world.
Right.
You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
no, you
And
have no. Wait, look, man, you have to do that. That's not even.
all
You know
right,
what I mean? That's like that's like if you're not in the world of what you're writing in, then you shouldn't be writing at that moment. You know what I mean? That's and
Right.
I think it's you know, and I think a lot of you refer to euphemistically as a writer's block, but it's one of those things
Mm-hmm.
is sometimes you just can't get yourself into that world to write at that time. And in that situation, you know, I tend to write like 3 or 4 different things at once. You know, some things are screenplays, some things are comic books, some things are just, you know, notes that I'm writing about a future comic, because I I learned from me personally. Now other people can be different. You know, everybody's different, obviously. But for me, if I have an idea about something, I need to get it down right away. You know, and
Right. Right.
get it
Right.
all down. And that way, like if I have, you know, like if I'm writing Jarhead, I may be writing my Bovine League at the same time. But something may strike me when I'm writing Bovine League. It's like, well, I can't use that in Bovine League because of X, Y, Z. But it would be perfect for Jarhead. You know what I mean? And
Right. Right.
I think that's the key. That's why, at least for me, why I tend to write a bunch of stuff at the same time. I know for
Mm-hmm.
some people that's impossible. You know, I know some people. You know, some people are so talented. You know, I'm not really a gifted writer in the sense that, you know, that it doesn't come easy. It's something I have to pull out of me. You know, like you know, not to toot my own horn, but I'm a gifted cameraman. Like I instinctively know how to light scenes and, you know, where to put the camera and all that stuff. I'm really good at that stuff, but it's not what I want to do any longer. But
Right.
writing is something I've had to learn. You know, it's been like
Right.
something I had to learn to do, like a, you know, like a over and over and over and over until I understood, you know, how things work. You know, that's why I can talk about, like, you know, I was saying, like, plot versus story, and talk about boy versus girl analogy, and, you know, all that kind of stuff, is because I've been doing it long enough now, and had to teach myself enough these basic things to keep myself within a structure, you know, so I knew
Mm-hmm.
how to write. Because I don't think I really knew how to write before, you know.
Right. Right. Like when see, I didn't know I had this talent until I started writing my first
Right.
project, like Jarhead. I didn't know I had this talent at the time because that's just locking into that natural talent.
Yep.
That's God given. That's see
Well, that's,
when I have a sorry, hold on,
no,
please,
go
hold on.
ahead, go ahead.
When I have an idea, see, I watch movies a lot of action scenes, a lot of action movies, a lot of horror movies, a lot of all kinds of movies. And when I watch them, I jump into that world and I pick bits and pieces of what I want and I lock it into my mind, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and keep thinking about it, keep thinking about it, keep thinking about it to refresh it. And then I put it down in the midst of my characters, and that's why they come out so refined and so detailed and so thought out and so it some of my characters that I put out, and you wrote some of them, you know,
Oh,
and you
right,
wrote
right,
most of them, and you even told me they're so defined, like damn, like
right. Well, I mean, but that
and
makes it,
that's
like I'm saying,
why because
it makes it easy to write when you have characters that are defined. You know, it makes it easy because, you know why? They can only behave a certain way. You know, it's like
right,
you put like a character that, you know, that only eats meat in a situation where he's on an island, but all he can eat is pineapples. He's going to behave a certain way. You know what I mean? That's going to affect him.
right,
You know, so it's like, and if you know your
right,
characters, you know where you're going. It's like, you know, it's like the Bovine League, you know. Like I said, I love writing them, but there's 9 characters, and I know each one of their person, not just their power, but I know their personalities. You know what I mean? I know their basic
hmm,
personalities, like, you know, from Geneva, the telepathic water sprite. You know, she's a caregiver. She's the altruist. You know, she's like moved by compassion, generosity, and selfishness. You know, selflessness. You know, so that's, you know, I know that about all 9 characters. I know all those things about them. So when I'm writing something, you know, when they're facing the sorcerer Black Angus, you know, Saint Ghislaine's going to, you know, act a different way than Lacey Swiss, and it should be that way. And it makes it easier to write when you know those things. You know, they can only do a certain way, and I think you instinctively write that way. You know too that that characters can only behave in a way that you know that they're allowed to behave. You know that their
yeah,
personalities are allowed to
because
behave. It's like, you know, it's like you and
yeah,
I. You and I are raised differently, you know,
hmm,
different generations, different age, different parts of the world. So you would react to something only a certain way. I may react completely different. And if you're a writer who can't express that about characters, you need to reevaluate when you're writing. Is what I'm saying. You know, if characters are interchangeable, if
right,
anybody can
right,
say any line, then it's, you know, it doesn't make any sense.
right. It's like okay, for example, okay. I hate to bring race into this,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna do it anyway. I don't give a fuck. It's like a white dude trying to create a black dude, or trying to create or design somebody black and try to react out with how a black person is supposed to react or talk. It won't be. It won't be. It won't be like it's like, for example. Okay. You know how, like, when a soul, when you know how, like, back in the 70s, where, like, say, like, James Brown come out with a song, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And then you hear Elvis come out with a song,
Right.
the same
Yeah.
song.
Yeah.
It don't have the same that same soul within it.
Right.
You
Well,
get
I
what
mean,
I'm saying?
yeah, yeah, no, that's I mean, when it comes to music, it's such a visceral experience. You know what I mean? Like we all like
Right,
music is
right.
powerful. Music is
Mhm.
very, very powerful. And I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like yeah, it was like it's those, it's Pat Boone coming out with Chuck Berry songs. Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. I know I
Right.
do, I will push back a little in the sense that I think if you are a white writer, you can write black characters and you can write them authentically if you know black people. You know what I mean? If you know black people and you're around black
Exactly.
people, you know it. But you can't be like some guy that doesn't know any black person, that has no interest in black culture or whatever, and then try to write these characters. Like it's okay. I'll say a perfect example. I watched that show Pose about the transgender, ballroom dancers, right? I knew nothing
Right.
about that world. I couldn't write in that world. You know what I mean? I just don't know
Right.
anything about that world to write in it. Now, after watching the show, I
Right.
know a little bit more, but it was still a drama. So the point is, now if I wasn't, but if I was like, a guy that was, just a straight guy that was part of that community or around that community, I could write from it. You know what I mean? Because I would know those
Mhm.
people. If you know the people, you can write. If you can't write like it's why you or I can probably write a white character because we're within the greater white society at all time. So we know a lot of white people and we know how certain people react. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Now is it a complete? Could I write like a story about? Can I write The Godfather? This intra Italian story. Not authentically, I couldn't. I could write a
No,
story
no.
about it. I could write a story about it, but it wouldn't be as good as Coppola, co-writing The Godfather or whatever with Puzo. You know, it's not the same. But that's everything, man. It's like not to get on too much of a philosophical thing, but it's like when white kids want to drop the N bomb. You know what I mean? And they say like,
Mhm.
well, they here's like what's in those. You make excuses what's in songs, or people say black community says amongst themselves. It's like all that's true, but think about it this way. I remember being a kid and going to an Italian friend's house, right? This big Italian family, like 20 people with big dinner, everyone yelling and screaming, talking out, and they said all kind of intra-Italian prejudice words, words I'd never heard of. Now, when I left that house, did I think it was okay if I used those terms? No, of course not. I'm not Italian, I'm not part of that family. So it's not okay for me to do that. And it's the same thing when it comes to writing characters. If you don't know about these people, you can't write about them. And I'm not saying you don't have you have to be intimately knowledge, but you either have to read some books or watch a lot of documentaries or go meet the community, immerse yourself and then you can do it. That's all I'm saying. Like
Right.
I'm not I because I hate to take away someone's creativity and say you can't write certain characters, but the point is you have to know those characters.
Right.
It's like my Sisters of Power comic that I have. It's about an all
Mhm.
women's detective agency on Earth's rebellious moon. And now it was originally in Force Galaxia, so I've been writing it a long time. But a couple years ago, I decided I was like, man, it's cool that I write this and everything, but it'd be better if I had a woman writer, a co-writer, right? So I went out and I found a young black woman, Isis Climbs, to help write issue 2. You know what I mean? Because it's more
Mhm.
authentic
Mhm.
with her point of view. Now, could I write it? And I was writing it fine. Sure, I was writing it fine, but she's brought an element that I couldn't bring, and that's the main point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, that's very understandable. You know what I'm saying? Because writing is so intricate.
Right,
And when I started writing, man, like, it took me into another world that drawing, I don't think, can take me to that world,
right,
because it took me to another world, took me to another dimension And I'm like, wow, I could write so much about this stuff, and
Right.
you know what I mean.
Right. No,
And
it's
see,
exciting when you realize that it's exciting, isn't it? It's like, man, I can, I can do
hmm
all of this. There's so much I can do.
right,
And
right,
the thing
and
is, man, and it's it's relentless. If you wanted to write a comic called like we wrote a spec script. Jeff and I wrote a spec script about Tupac, as if he survived and he lived in the suburbs. So you know what I mean? It's
hmm
like it's exciting. You can do anything. You can write any world. I mean, you can put people in space. You can put them in the pits of hell. You can do whatever you want to do.
right. It's like being in a spirit world. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Well,
Spirit, been me being a
well,
yeah, me being a spirit.
you're almost like a
But
not to tamper anybody's religion, but you're almost like a god because you're creating your
hmm
own universes and you're doing everything you want in that universe, and you're the one that's creating the characters, giving them the personalities, putting them in the situations. You know what I mean?
hmm
It's a powerful feeling. And I understand why people like doing it. I know I get jazzed when I do it. It's like, wow, I can
hmm
do any, I can do anything. It's why I like writing, like I said, the Bovine League so much, is because I've got this whacked out story about the cosmic udder and the four teats of matter. Instead of the infinity gauntlet and the gemstones.
right.
So you know, so
And
you can do anything.
right, and it's crazy because me being a spiritual person, like, and I deal with a lot of stuff when it comes to the spirit. I understand how to write those things because when you endure in the spirit world, when you endure in those things, see, a lot of people can write fantasy, but until they endure and see those things spiritually and see those things that they write about, they can't put no soul into it.
Well,
You
yeah,
get what
well,
I'm saying?
yeah, because it goes back to being only you. Look, and that's another thing. Only you can tell the story you want to tell. You know what I mean? Only you can tell that story.
Mm-hmm.
Only you can set that story up and tell it the way you want it told. That's the thing about it is it's like, it used to be that thing where they said, write what you know, write what you know, write what you know, which is
Mm-hmm.
fine advice, whatever. But if you're writing fantasy, it's like you said, spirituality or whatever you're writing about, and that stuff that's in your head, it's in your head, so
Mm-hmm.
it intimately. It's like it's why I'm not a religious person, but
That's very understandable.
I understand how religion inspires people. You know what I mean? I can see that. Like I can see how like one of my favorite books is John Milton's Paradise Lost. About the fall of Lucifer and the subsequent fall of mankind. To me it's fascinating stuff. That whole what's it called antediluvian period, before the fall, before the flood, all the biblical stuff that happened before the flood. That's that's a world that hasn't been touched on that much. That's a world where, when you read the Bible, they talk about giants, they talk about mythical creatures. You know what I mean? So it's a whole world. It's
Mm-hmm.
like there's like a lot of stuff. I'm like I said, I'm not a religious person, I'm not a believer, but obviously
Right.
I'm in the society, so I know religion enough. And if you look at even like the
Right.
what do they call it? The fuck, what's the name of it? The prelapsarian period, before the fall of man in the Garden of Eden. You know,
Right.
there's tales to be told about that. You know what I mean? There are things
Right.
that just so much can be done, and we're talking about one. We're talking about one particular religious way. We're not talking about all the thousands and myriads of other religions that are out there. And spiritual ways
And
of
that
walking.
and see what people don't understand is that you can flip it, and like that's why I said until people write about drama, horror, and all that stuff. That's what you see every day. You get what I'm saying?
Right? Yeah, yeah. Well, that's why those
But
things work.
yeah,
I
exactly.
mean,
But
that's.
you barely
Go
see
ahead.
a person writing about their beliefs. Not too many people writing about that. I mean,
Well,
they might write and draw a good bit because some people are worried about what people want to say and get offended by it. But see me, I put all my beliefs, all my fucking thoughts and spiritual shit up in my in Jarhead because that is where he comes from. You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Well,
And
I mean,
that
Jarhead's an
and Jarhead
angel.
is a giant.
You know,
Yeah,
Jar,
Jarhead is a giant.
right,
He's a
right,
basically he's a part of the Nephilim. He has
right,
Nephilim blood within him. You know what I'm
right.
saying?
Well, it's like, well,
And
think about, well, you know
what
what it
people
is. Jarhead is not human. You know, that's the thing about it. When I was writing collision, collision of blah 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 blah. Um, I forget the name of it now. But anyway, when I was writing, the whole point was, you approach Jarhead in a non-human way. You know, collision of the Colossus, collision of the Colossus. Oh, I think you locked up, man. Oh, we've lost your connection. I guess I'll keep entertaining here while you're gone. I don't know if anyone can hear me or if we're still talking, but yeah. So I guess I should talk about writing a little bit, until Daniel's going to come back. Um, Another piece of advice about writing is not even writing, but creating like comics is the production triangle. Oh, there you are. You're back.
hmm
I lost you.
Sorry about that. Sorry about
That's all right.
that.
I just started talking. I didn't know if anyone was watching, so I didn't want to just leave it just sitting there. But I was
No, it's a connection act of stupid.
But yeah, no, but I was talking about what I started talking about was in comics, like off the subject we were talking about, but I was just going to expand that when you're doing something creative, especially on your own, but it's reality in any way, like a creative endeavor, like you're going to make a movie, you're going to make a comic book, you're going to do a play, you're going to make an album. There's this thing called the production triangle. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but so you have a triangle, right? And you have three sides. One side is good, one side is fast, and one side is cheap. And you can have two of those three things. So you can have it good and fast, but it won't be cheap. You can have it cheap and good, but it won't be fast. You can have it fast and cheap, but it won't be good. You know what I mean? So you can have
hmm
two of those three things, when you're doing any production. Anyway, so I was rambling on while you were gone. That's all I was just saying. So.
No, no. See, that's why when it comes to doing multiple genres of stories, you can integrate them into each other.
Right, right. It's your
See, when
world,
you're
man. It's your world. You can do whatever the hell you want. You know what I mean? That's the thing. And I write like traditional kind of maybe mainstream superhero type comics because that's what I like to do because I'm from that generation. But I mean,
hmm
you can, like you can write a comic about. I mean, look at manga. You know what they have about they have mangas about everything. The postman. You know what I mean? The doctor,
hmm
the dentist. And so we in the West have to understand that we can tell tales using visual media, using the visual medium of comics in a lot of different ways. We can tell a lot of different stories. And some people
hmm
understand that. I mean, there's a lot of good comics. There's a lot of not just black indie comics that I was promoting earlier, but indie comics in general. There's tons of really cool stuff coming out. This interesting stuff, and stuff's getting picked up left and right by Hollywood. Now not always getting made, but stuff's getting picked up.
Right. That's why I would, and I'm gonna tell you the truth, and I'm gonna be honest. That's why I would never sell Jarhead to Hollywood because
Right.
I know. Because I'm gonna tell you why. I know, and I know for a fact that Jarhead is gonna be one big motherfucker. Why I say that is because it's like this. It's real, and it's something that people can gravitate to, and it's something that people can relate to, and it's something that is going to that's a legacy that is going to live on for years and years and years and years. Soon, when say like when a movie of Jarhead comes out, right? People are going to remember it for
Right.
its grittiness. I already have the whole thing planned out in my head. I already have the whole thing planned out in my spirit, mind, and body. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Shit.
here's the thing. You have to decide what you want to do. If you want to go, make it into a film. Uh, if you're taking anybody else's money, you're gonna have to listen to them. That's what it comes down to. So
Oh, I understand that.
that's why like you're saying you want to. I mean, eventually, even if you raise the money yourself and you make the film yourself and all that happens, you're still gonna have to deal with Hollywood in some way, like for distribution or to get it into theaters or to get it. There's always some bullshit. They got their hand everywhere. So no matter how independent you are, it ends up. I mean, like, so you've heard of the NFT things, those NFTs.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing a couple of those for this Hollywood Offenders things I'm doing. So we're trying to raise X amount of money, but these guys I'm working with are deep into it, and they're like, look, dude, we should try to raise a shitload of money and do a feature animated film. Now, I'm down with that. You know what I mean? Because they were like, we can do it. We can raise enough money. We can do it outside the Hollywood system and everything. It's like, I'm totally down with that. But at some point, we're still going to have to come to Hollywood and say, how do we get this on HBO, or how do we get this on, Cartoon Network? How do we get, you know what I mean? At some
Mm-hmm.
point, no matter what it is, you end up dealing with this corporate monster that's known as quote unquote Hollywood.
And then that's why, you know, us as people, us being creative geniuses that we are, why don't we create our own studio?
Well, that's just it. I mean, that's what the beauty of, love him or hate him, and but see, the same thing, love him or hate him, Tyler Perry's done exactly that, right? He's created his own studios. He has a whole giant complex in Atlanta, and he knows all that. But at the same time, Tyler Perry still has to go to Hollywood for distribution, and you can
Damn, you're right.
you still, you know what I mean? It's still, they still get their
You're
hand
right.
in it somehow. You know what I mean? It's like, at some point, Tyler Perry doesn't own, like, Tyler Perry's not a capitalist in the sense that he owns the means of production and owns the means of distribution. You know what I mean? The two of the things that make you a true
It's
capitalist.
it's
And
basically you have to know somebody in order to really get.
right, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, I
it's,
understand.
but it goes back to what I was saying before, though. It's about relationships again. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
I mean, okay, for instance, say like, not even say like, when I can become a big famous damn producer in Hollywood, knowing me is going to help you more than this other guy that comes up to me once he thinks I'm somebody. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm talking about. For me, at least, about relationships is, I don't, I sure, if I'm successful and you come to me with something good, well, I look at it, of course I would. But am I more likely to look at people's stuff that I've known for 10 years? Yes, of course, because that's just human nature.
Mm-hmm.
It's like one of my boys used to do sound work for Adam Sandler all the time, and Sandler has this whole crew of people that's around him, you know what I mean? And he helps them all out, and they all get work doing different things on his projects in different ways. And that's because that's who he knows. And there's nothing wrong with that. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I know nepotism's looked down upon, and in the sense it should be, but in the sense that when you meet people, you don't burn bridges is a true thing, is you never know. It's that old adage, don't kick someone on the way up because way up, because you never know what's going to happen to you on your way down.
Right.
And I mean, I look at myself even, man, just on a non-entertainment way. I look at, like, I've been homeless since last November when they raised my rent way out of control, and I've been staying with friends, but it's because I've have friends. You know what I mean? That I've been able to
Mm-hmm.
stay here, there, and everywhere, which is great. I'm staying with a friend down in Sacramento, which is wonderful. She's letting me stay. But I'm going to get out of here as soon as I can. But you know what I mean? It's like, because of those relationships, I'm able to survive. And the same thing is in the entertainment business, and specifically in a small place like the comic book world. It's like, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's some people get a bad reputation in this business, and it sticks with them because it's so small. It's such a small
Mm-hmm.
world. And like, even like, I was my partner and I up for a script for a company. I'm not going to get into who it was or whatever, but we developed it for a while. They turned us down, okay, which is fine. That's what they want to do. But then I was talking to another black creator here in Hollywood that's from the film business and the comic book business too, and he was up for the exact same script, and the exact same thing happened to him. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like the town is small. Everybody knows who you are. It's like, for instance, social media, and I've been preaching this to people. Say what you want to say on social media. Believe me, I write, if you follow me on social media, I write a lot about politics and social issues and stuff like that. And that might hurt me someday with certain people, with someone that doesn't appreciate that. But if you go on social media and say you bash Marvel all the time, there are Marvel people, there are people at Disney who monitor those sites, who see that you, Joe Blow, talked about how much you hate Disney. So when you go to, submit your script to them, they're going to remember you. You know what I mean? People, it's just human nature. I'm not saying it's anything that's Hollywood's doing it to be vicious, but if you cross someone, they're going to remember you, is my point.
Right. And that's why To be honest, that's why I said, me being me trying to send my script off to Marvel and all that stuff, it won't work with me. Why?
Well,
Is because I'm so much of a, and you have your own company, you know what I'm saying?
of
And
course.
in some way, somehow, in some way, you want to build your own legacy. And that's what I mean. Give it like sending those scripts off. You got a 90% chance. 90, you got a 10% chance that they will use that.
Right. Well,
Why I say that? Go ahead.
and someone may steal your, look, it's like I said before, no one's doing this viciously, but it's just human
I
nature.
understand.
If you send, like, if I send you a script to you, right, and you read it,
Uh
and
huh.
you say like, well, it's not for me, and you send it back to me, and then you write a script next year, and there's something in your script that's similar to something in mine. That's look. Could I sue you if you're successful? Probably. I probably could. But the point is, you didn't do it viciously or maliciously. It's just something you did. It's like one of the reasons why I can't read people's scripts now that I'm working in Hollywood. Like, I just can't read. I don't want to inadvertently take someone's idea, you know. And and that's the way your mind works that way. If you come to a problem, you'll be like, oh, how do I solve this issue where this guy's on this bridge? And you think like, oh, right, maybe you should jump off the bridge. And it's like something you may have read about in someone's script. Like I've had friends that have been successful that sued studios over scripts. And what happens? They get blacklisted, you know, and not intentionally, not viciously, not in their face, but they can't get meetings. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, you're right. You're right, is my point.
That's why, to be honest with you, um, that's why if I'm going to do I'm gonna build it from the ground up. And you think about it, right? I may have to deal with Hollywood
Right.
somewhere
At
down
some
the
point,
line,
yeah, yeah.
but if you build the infrastructure big enough and strong enough and wild enough to where anybody and everybody can see it, and you making bangers all over the damn thing, banger, and you banging every series out, banging, and you get as many people that liking it and all that shit,
Right. Things are
they're gonna
different,
come
man.
to you.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point. That's the point. That's exactly the point. And
Build,
nowadays,
build. That's
look,
why I
if you
learned.
get, if the In Your Face show gets 100,000 subscribers, right? And
Uh huh.
if you get 50,000 viewers watching you live, if only 1,000 of those people, if only 1,000 of those people go out and buy the product of the person you have on, that builds their audience, that builds their strength, it builds their who they are, so that then that's when a producer is coming looking for things, they'll be like, oh, Bovine League has 100,000 people following it on Instagram. We need to tap into that audience. You know what I mean? Things have changed. I'm trying to learn to change with them. I'm an old man. I'm trying to learn this new world. But it really is true that they do look at like how many followers you have or how many people are subscribing to you, what you can bring to their table, how many people can you bring
Right,
along,
and that's why I said, um, build the brand of the In Your Face show, build the brand of Jarhead, build the brand of Brick and Chains Comics. Eventually people want to come trying to eat at my table
right?
and sit at my table, and that's
That's what
and
you
that's
want.
just going to build bridges. You know
Right.
what I'm
That's what
saying?
you
Build a
want.
bridge in
That's what you
itself,
want. Right. That's what
and
you want.
that is why I do what I do when it comes to Jarhead is to build it as big as possible, so that way everybody can see it from a mile away.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that means build it with your confidence, your mind, and your talent.
Yeah.
Because confidence is going to build your shit.
Right. Look,
It
and
is.
I know a lot of people think you're being lacking humility when you have confidence. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? A lot of people think you're being an exaggerator or you know um, uh, uh, provoking
Arrogant.
people. Arrogance. Yeah, arrogance. People think you're arrogant. And look, there's nothing wrong with a little arrogance. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with that. If you have, and I'm not saying you need to go around saying you're better than X, Y, or Z, but if you say like, I know this is going to be successful because of, because I'm confident in my ability, that's a fine piece of arrogance to have. I don't need you to go up to be like, well, fuck Shazam because Shazam, he sucks and my character's better. But if you just say like, look, I'm confident that people are going to want to read about Jarhead, and people are going to like Jarhead, people are going to want to have Jarhead dolls. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, what else? If you're not arrogant about your own stuff, right? If you're, lack for a better word, arrogance. If you're not confident about your own stuff, why are you doing it?
And exactly. And why is people want to buy that shit?
Right. Why are you? Why would anyone want to?
Because
If you don't think what you're presenting is the best of the best of the best, why are you presenting it? Like
exactly.
and look, man, I know I'm not a great talented writer. You know what I mean? But I can write. You know what I mean? And I'm confident in what I do write. Like
All right.
my writing partner Jeff's such a great writer. Now he's been doing it for 30 some years, so of course he's much better. Like he's so good about processing information quickly. So we'll have a meeting and someone will say like, you need to make these characters blue and green. He can come out with that like in 3 minutes. Oh, okay, well, we'll do this blue, we'll do this green. Where it might take me an hour or two to think about it. You know what I mean? And it's and
Mm-hmm.
it's and well, that's all sort of being confident because he's been doing it for so long. That he can do that.
And that's why from what I've seen and what I feel, like that's why I picked you to do Jarhead Part 2 is because, dude, like what it would be like, right? If Jarhead gets seen by the big guys, right?
Right.
By the big guys, right? And think about it. Think about I'm painting the picture. Let me paint this picture right here.
Right.
You in Hollywood, Jarhead gets painted, get shown by the big guys. It's not up for sale. You know what I'm saying? Not up for sale. It just gets seen. Eventually, somebody's going to be like, who's the writer behind this? They're going to eventually want to know who's the author
Well, yeah.
behind
Right.
that masterpiece, and they're going to want to buy it, but they're not going to get it because think about it. If, for example, if Black Panther made all that money on it, and the original person that kept it, and they had the mind for it, the mind for business, and know how to make money, don't you know they could double that shit that the Marvel had made off of that?
That's the problem about working for the big companies, Marvel and DC is, as a writer or creator, it's work for hire. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
that you don't have the rights to that stuff. You know what I mean? So that's why a lot of the modern Marvel and DC comics have such retread characters. Like a female version of this, or a male version of this, or a young version of this, or a black version of that. They have so many retread characters because a lot of writers don't want to create new characters for them because they get no royalties. We're seeing it right now. I forget who it is, but someone, and the guy's very aware of the contract he signed, but he's making a good point about, you know, they made all this money off this character and they offered me like, $5,000. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, yeah, that's the problem. Like
Hmm.
nobody wants to create new characters for the big two companies because you don't get the kid. I mean, why would you? Especially now with like guys like you and I, or like if you're a name artist or writer for Marvel DC now and you have a following built in, you can go write that original character yourself finally and do it just like me and you do it and self-publish and do it that way. You know what I mean? Instead of giving it
Right.
to Marvel or DC, if you give it to Marvel or DC and it becomes big, you're not going to get anything for it. But if you're doing it by yourself and it becomes big, it's all yours. You split it. I mean, you probably
Right.
should split it with your
To
artist, but
to be honest, and I'm gonna tell you the truth, and I'm gonna keep it a bean. I'm being honest about this shit. Selling your art, not selling your art and your fucking writing, and you know it's gonna be big. And you sell it to Marvel and DC or to fucking Hollywood, and you know you can make a lot of you can make a lot of money off of that bullshit. Don't mean to call it bullshit, but if you know you can make a lot of money off of that shit, and you still sell it off, you shooting your damn self in the foot. That's like self sabotage. That's like that's like
well, I mean, here's the real
yeah.
deal, man. I mean, think about this. you know, for lack of a term, back of another term, we're all whores, right? And we all have a number in our head when we'd sell out. You know what I mean? Like I'm with you. If they're offering me, some pittance or something, I don't think it's worth it. It's fine, but I guarantee you, I have a number in my head, and all my kind like if Disney comes to me and they say we want to buy the Bovine League, and I say, well, these are the way, this is what I want to happen if you're going to buy it, and they offer me the right amount of money, I'm selling. Because you know
I
why?
very understand.
You know why? I can come up with another characters. That's the thing about it. I mean, if you've only got one idea, I understand you being holding on to it and being like, I can't do anything. I better never give this up. But if you know that you can write that idea and you got 30 other characters or 50 other stories behind it, if you get the right amount, like I said, and it's everybody's individual number. Everybody has their own
Right.
individual thing in their head of what they're going to sell out for, quote unquote, sell out for. You know, and I know as I've gotten, and especially as I've gotten older, my number's gotten a lot lower.
Exactly. That's
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah.
saying.
The older you get,
And yeah, the older you get,
you
and
know,
see, the fact is that see, we're so see me. I put a lot of passion into it. I've dreamed about Jarhead. I've lived, breathed Jarhead. I've seen this character in my dreams, man. Like dog. I couldn't sell it if I even tried to because it's so glued to me. It's attached to me. It's like
well,
a baby
and if,
monkey.
but see, that's the thing. If you're aware of that, right, then you can approach every situation with that confidence, no matter who's coming to you saying, like, dude, we're going to give you $2 million. We want to make this into a thing. We're going to be, and you know that you're not going to sell it for that. Then it makes it so much easier to deal with those kind of people. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
if you're not, if you're in a situation, even like where I'm in, where it's like you don't want to, you can't take the risk of pissing someone off, you know, by declining their offer. You know what I mean? But if you're very confident in that you only want to keep this character for yourself and you want to do it, that never becomes an issue with you. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't
Right.
matter what they say to you, because it doesn't matter, who whatever says. And then and you approach that, and I think not just with Hollywood or not just with the money, but with the creative side too. You know what I mean? You don't. It doesn't matter. You know what you want to do with Jarhead. You know where you want the story to go. You know where you want to take it. So it doesn't matter if you get like you put an issue out and you get some review of some guy saying, "Oh, I don't understand what this is doing. This sucks." Doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Doesn't matter what they say. Don't matter what they do. I mean,
Right.
ultimately, man, ultimately, we're all creating art that we want to see ourselves.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And that's why when I say it's like this, okay, that's why I said I'm doing book two with putting a lot of me in it. What I mean by that is putting a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, a lot more than I put in book one. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? And what I mean by that is like a lot of the characters that I put in there off of that little poster that I put out, that poster with all those characters on it,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
they're all going to be in that.
Right.
That's actually potentially book two cover.
Right.
But I'm gonna visualize it and redo it. I'm gonna get somebody to redo it and make it into a cover format. It's gonna be a
Right.
wraparound cover.
Oh,
Just somebody
cool.
like that.
Yeah. 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 I
But
love wraparound
also,
covers.
what I want to do for people, for this, and book two comes out when book two comes out, and when um when book one, because I got book one too. What I want to do is throw a big launch party for it. And
Right
this is
on.
not about me, but
Right.
what I want to do is throw a big launch party for it, but also have other creators come in and sell their shit as well as me having a big launch party for Jarhead.
So like a
Just
mini,
think
like a
about
mini,
it.
like a mini convention or something.
Exactly.
Like a mini jar convention.
We
That's
all
cool.
exactly. We all make money, you know what I'm saying? We all get a piece of the audience and of we all get a piece of the pie. And
You
that's
sh-
why I said anybody could dine at my table as long as you don't disrespect me and as long as
you
you don't
should
try to stab me in the back.
You should reach out to a guy back east called Eric Cooper. He does a comic book convention called Black Label Con. He may be able to like work with you in that kind of capacity you're talking about. He's a really good guy. So yeah, looking up Eric Cooper. But hey man, look, I've got to go actually because I just realized it's 5:20 and I've got a 5:30 Zoom with another call. So I need to let you go. But I've had a blast talking to you today.
Hey, it's always a banger, baby. That's why I told you we
It's
coming
always a
with
blast.
the
Yeah.
smoke and the
Yes.
fire.
Yes.
Yo.
And I appreciate you give me this time to run my mouth, where I just sit here and fucking pontificate. So, I
I love
appreciate
it.
that. Cool.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hey, hold on.
Yo.
I got to do my intro and let's get out of here.
Okay.
Yo, sorry, guys. We ran out of time, but I love y'all. Fuck the haters. And it's been well with my bro, Andre Owens, man. We're gonna get back on here, motherfucker. Also, I'm coming to y'all with something special for episode 20. Be there. And thank y'all for all of what y'all did
Thanks for
what
the
y'all
time,
doing for
everybody.
the
Thanks for the
support.
time. Yeah. Thanks
Thanks
for
for
the
the
time.
time. And also, this is the In Your
Your
Face
face show in your motherfucking face
show.
show.
We out of here.
All right, brother. See
Peace.
ya.
Everybody loves the fire.